So I have an absolute fear of flying, like crazy irrational fear of flying, in which I managed to get into the club lounge when I came this time because the cabin crew pitied me, and so I just drank my whole way. And it's completely irrational. I think the whole time that I'm going to drop out of the sky, that the man that I love and the children that I live for are going to be left without me, bereft. And it's crazy and it consumes me, but it consumes me for the day that I'm flying, for the moment that I'm flying, and until I land, and then I phone my husband and say, well, I'm alive. And my mortality meant so much more since having my children. It's like the minute that I had them in my life meant something so much more. But it doesn't keep me awake at night. In fact, it never disturbs my sleep. Even the night before I'm due to fly, I don't wake up in the middle of the night with fear or thoughts or a busy head that I just can't rest. But that isn't how I feel about the trans stuff. I genuinely wake up in the middle of the night and I think, like, is this real? Is it real that actually we're taking kids, like in the United States? This doesn't happen in the UK because we've got such a cracking health service. But in America, is it real? Is it really real that you can take a 12-year-old daughter who hates her body and you can get her breasts removed? Like, yes. In my moments in the night, I'm thinking, no, I know it's real. I've read about it. I've met the parents of the children that it's happening to. But it's like it can't be real because it's so disgusting. In the middle of the night, I think, are we really, in the middle of my 11-year-old son playing Minecraft, is it real that Mermaids, the trans lobby group, is advertising to children saying, do you really feel like, are you really a boy? Are you really a girl? Is it real that then he goes into school and schools advise parents to contact mermaids if their children come back with craziness that they're born in the wrong body? Those things keep me awake at night because that is a rational fear. To fear that we are doing that to children is a totally rational thing to be really petrified about. It's in the silent moments where my husband's lying next to me asleep and my children are silent in the house and I can hear nothing except my busy mind that just won't let me go back to sleep because it asks of me, well, what are you going to do about it? Like, what's anyone going to do about it? Because it's like this wave of cult has landed upon our society, and you expect, right? I expect boring old men in important jobs to have no time for this, right? So when it goes into our judiciary system in the United Kingdom, there's something called the Equal Bench Act. Now that has come about because we had a despicable police force and judiciary system which basically ignored what was happening to black people in our country when it came to the brutality of the police and the way that they were treated by the justice system. Same here. And so on the basis of that guilt, they have totally overshot when it comes to vulnerable 6'2" men in dresses who apparently need protection so that they can go in women's toilets.
Danger.
And what I hope is that the world really has genuinely swiveled upon its axis and this is just a blip and it's going to end. I just don't know how. I know that our society is broken. You know that our society is broken. We all fucking know the society is broken, and yet I have no idea how we're going to fix it. So in the United Kingdom in 2019, 87,000 records, incidents of hate were recorded. Now, that sounds like something that we should be doing, right? That sounds like a really good, well-intended thing that we're doing. We're saying, wow, hate's a terrible thing. Let's write it down. That's not what's happening. So I could go out of here today and I could decide that someone thinks I'm Jewish. And so they shout at me and I phone the police in the United Kingdom, not here. Hopefully not here.
Definitely here.
Oh, okay, here too. And I can phone the police and I can say, I've been a victim of a hate crime.
Yeah.
And they say, well, what happened? Well, I'm not really sure what they said, but I'm pretty sure it's because they thought I was Jewish. And are you Jewish? No. But I'm pretty sure the person thought I was Jewish. That gets recorded as a hate crime. Now, if I'm the perpetrator of that well-evidenced crime, in which nobody knows what was said or why it was said or who it was said to, that goes on a check. So when I apply for a job, that comes up, that I've committed a hate incident. No evidence of crime, no evidence of anything. 87,000 people in the United Kingdom, which has a population of 5, were recorded last year. Now, I don't know if you know what happened to me, but I've been interviewed under caution twice by the British police. I mean, you look at me.
Such a threat.
Such a massive threat. The first time it was because I criticised a woman who took her son to Thailand when he was 16 to remove his testicles, slice and invert his penis so he could be called by a girl's name. I forget his name actually, but the woman now runs she's a lobbyist. Her name's Susie Green, and she runs an organisation called Mermaids. And he did that for his 16th birthday. I don't know about you, Linda, but it's an odd gift.
Very odd gift.
It's nothing that I've ever bought my children.
Or into, I heard.
No. Never. So she reported me to the police. So I said that trans in children is abuse. There were 6 other tweets. I think I called Janet Mock, who advocates for the prostituting of children so that they can validate their gender identity, because there's nothing more validating for women than having sex for money. And so he advocates that for 15-year-olds, trans girls, and I said that I called him a man, and I went along to the police interview, and you'll be pleased to know that they had very British teeth. And the guy says to me, and I didn't speak, so I was fabulous. I was with the poshest man I'd ever met, who was my solicitor. And he was so posh and important that in the middle of a sentence he would pause, and everyone just did this. And then he'd resume like 30 seconds later because he was too important to interrupt. Anyway, so I'm sat there and I just say no comment, and I'm quite defiant, and I'm looking them in the eye and I'm thinking I'm gonna treat you with the contempt that you deserve for having me in this room for an hour and a half, asking me questions. And then at one point he said, well, it's from up north, so I couldn't do the accent because you won't recognise it anyway. So he goes, well, actually, Mrs. Keen-Minshall, having sex reassignment surgery doesn't include castration. And I just thought, what does he think? That they come home with their testicles? That have a penis inverted and just have some spare parts at the back? Anyway, so that at the end of that, they're trying to charge me. This is 6 tweets. They got my details from Twitter at a time where Jihadi John's details were not released by Twitter. But they released my information, and they called me, and I was interviewed an hour and a half under caution. At the end of that, they wanted to charge me with a hate crime, conspiracy, because I talked to other women who also thought the same as me. So conspiracy, malicious communications, and a couple of other sort of public order offences. Now that didn't go anywhere, but not for want of trying, because Susie Green did ask it to be reviewed. So it went back to the CPS, which is the Crown Prosecution Service, who decide whether or not you get taken to court or get charged. Then, a year later, and this is going to sound like a lie, it's not a lie, I made a video, and I ironically had a picture of Susie Green, the Mermaids lobbyist who lobbies for children to have medical interventions, including surgery. So she's a pro-trans in kids woman, and I call her my children's champion in a framed photograph in my office. That was one of the reasons the police interviewed me under caution a second time. And the woman, who was quite out of breath, said, well, Mrs. Keen-Shaw, I just want to know, how many photos do you have of Susie Green in your house? And the other thing I said in that video...
It's against the law, isn't it? Having photographs of people.
Well, have you seen them? So then the other thing that I said was that I would love to stand in a court of law and say trans in children is abuse. I would love it on our records, in our sort of judiciary, in our court documents, that I think trans in children is abuse, and I would like someone to have to scribe it so it can be read forevermore. And so I said, I'd like to say this in a court of law, bring it on Susie Green. And that was called a threat.
So what?
I have no idea, but that was threatening behaviour. Bring it on Susie Green. So I think you have to be mindful in this country that every time they attack your free speech, which you are the only, here, we don't have it. We don't have it. But here you have it. And if you lose it, well, then you need to fight for your First Amendment rights. And every time someone curbs it, including yourselves when you self-censor, you have to have a little word with yourself. Because it will go like that and you won't have it, and then it will be something that you used to enjoy. So in the United Kingdom, the life of a child at the moment at the age of 4, and I've heard that it's as bad, if not worse, in the United States and in Canada and in Australia and New Zealand, everywhere where we seem to sort of achieve this kind of horrible consumer society. We now consume the next thing is consuming the fertility of children. So you go to school and you might have to fill in a form at age 4. Are you a man? Are you a boy? Are you a girl? Are you trans? And that's something that happened in our schools last week. So if you look at transgendertrend.com, they wrote about this. So then you go home and you're watching your Minecraft video, and then in the middle of that there's an advertisement, are you trans? And then your parents go to the school and they advise them to go and talk to a trans lobby group. And in the school syllabus there's trans literature, and everything is like it's normal, that it's normal that you don't want to be in the body that you're in, not that it could be a response to trauma or any of those things that lead to a child feeling that they don't fit in the right body. We just ignore that. Then what happens is you go to your GP, and the GPs are so scared that they're going to be accused of being transphobic, they pass them straight along, so GP, general practice doctor, they pass them along to the Tavistock. Now the Tavistock is somewhere that you think, well, this is going to be good because all these people are trained. But no. I have talked to people who no longer work at the Tavistock, where they had spoken up and they've said to their superiors, look, these parents are homophobic. They just don't want a gay child. They're deeply homophobic. This child's response is in response to these homophobic parents. And then what happens to that child is the case gets taken off of that counsellor, and they'll give it to someone else who will give them puberty blockers. And they know how to get the puberty blockers because they've already been told by the lobby groups what they need to say. And they've gone online and they've been told, say that you want to commit suicide. Say that you'll do it. Even though the trans teen rate of suicide in the UK is almost 0. There aren't children actually killing themselves. But if you tell parents that, what wouldn't they do? What wouldn't you do to save a child who's saying, I'm going to kill myself? Personally, I don't think I would rid them of their sexuality, their sexual function, their hope of ever having a sexually intimate relationship as adults or children. I wouldn't sacrifice their fertility. I might decide to sell my house and invest in counselling. But then in the United Kingdom, the counsellors have signed something called a Memorandum of Understanding, which says they have to affirm. So what's happened? While we've all not really known this is happening, these trans lobby groups, they've got into your schools, They've got into your government and politicians who, frankly, don't deserve their positions in society because they don't speak for us.
Yeah.
So they've got into education, the police, the judiciary, everywhere that you expect a sober, normal, decent person to require evidence to say, actually, we're not going to do this. They've already been corrupted. They're already thinking, as opposed to they're thinking about the poor child who's confused, who will have their bodies ruined. They are thinking about John, 6'2", now Janet, Charlotte Clymer, or Sarah McBride. And they're thinking, these poor men, how are they going to exercise their fetish and intimidate women? It's just so weird. How are they going to intimidate women if we don't give them every key to every door that women have bolted behind them to stop men coming in?
Right.
I'm going to try and be hopeful, but I don't know how. Basically, we know all these things are broken. We know they are. We know children's bodies are being broken. We know education's broken. We know that this cult has managed to infiltrate everywhere. And now what we have to do is we have to try and fix it. And what you have to do is you have to use their tactics. We have to get in to the positions that they've got into, and we have to offer a different narrative, and one that centres women and children and safeguarding. And we have to say the word no as many times as we can until we run out of breath. Thank you.